All right, get ready for this one. It's, well, the Reddit saga, it's been going on for like 3 years now. We're going to be taking a deep dive into a series of updates. The original post was called aita for raining on my cousin's parade regarding the name she picked out for her baby.
Yeah.
So it started on Remif Asshole. But, like a lot of these things, it's found a home on Rebus to Redditor updates. So that's where we're going.
But yeah, it's kind of amazing how this question about a baby's name just blew up and caused so much discussion.
I know, right? And the way this story has changed over time, it really shows you how the internet and all that social media stuff, how it's changing all the time. The first post was back in May 2019. You meet the author and their cousin Stephanie. They're pretty close, and Stephanie is expecting a baby girl. And she's already picked out the name, Karen.
Oh yeah, Karen. Even back then in 2019, that name was already getting a certain kind of reputation online.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where the conflict starts. The author, because they're online a lot, they know about all the negative stuff people associate with Karen. But Stephanie, she's not really on social media much. Seems like she had no idea.
It's like two different worlds crashing together. You've got, all this internet culture changing so fast, and then you've got the traditional way people think about baby names.
Okay, so let's get into the author's original post. See things from their side. They went to a party, one of those gatherings for Stephanie and her friends. Everyone's all polite to Stephanie's face, telling her the name Karen is lovely. But then, the second she's out of earshot, they start telling the author how much they hate the name.
Classic, right? People, they just feel like they got to say what they really think when the person they're talking about isn't around.
Totally. So the author, they actually put it right there on the post. They said, so my 29F cousin Stephanie, 28F, is due to have her first baby in 2 months. She's having a girl, and she's already picked out the name Karen. My issue isn't with the name itself. It's a fine name. It was my grandmother's name, but with the connotations it's picked up in recent years. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they just laid it all out there, didn't they? The whole elephant in the room thing. Everyone knows what Karen means now, even if they don't say it.
And the author, they go on to say how awkward it was. Like they were stuck in the middle. They even wrote, I was feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the fact that literally every one of Stephanie's friends expressed disapproval of the name to me, but then told her it was lovely to her face. I felt like Stephanie was being done a disservice, and someone needed to be honest with her.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. Do you stay quiet so you don't cause a fight? Or do you say something, even if you might risk the friendship?
Right. So the author, they try to talk to Stephanie about the name, have an honest conversation. They even showed her Know Your Meme so she could see what people were saying online.
Know your meme! Wow, that's an interesting choice. It's hard to explain, internet humor and all that to someone who's not really into it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was the best move.
Yeah.
The author even wrote about Stephanie's reaction. They said, Stephanie was absolutely furious. She felt I was mocking her and insulting her taste. She stormed out of my house and hasn't spoken to me since.
Oof. Sounds like that conversation didn't go so well. Maybe going straight to know your meme wasn't the best way to start.
No kidding. So at the end of the post, the author asks, so, Reddit, AITA, for trying to be honest with my cousin about the baggage her chosen baby name carries.
Yeah.
Or should I have just kept my mouth shut and let her figure it out on her own?
And of course, Reddit being Reddit, that question just exploded. People in the comments, they're going back and forth, arguing about whether the author was right or wrong.
It got a lot of attention, and the comments, well, they were pretty divided. One person said, YTA, it's her baby, her choice. You should have stayed out of it. But then someone else said, YTA for using Know Your Meme as a source. That's not exactly a credible or persuasive way to make your point.
Yeah, it seems like most of the commenters thought the author was wrong to interfere. Even if they were trying to be nice, they should have just stayed out of it.
You see that a lot on AITA. It's like people would rather avoid a fight, even if it means someone might end up embarrassed or having problems later on.
Right. It's the same thing that happened at the party with Stephanie's friends. It's easier to, give advice or criticize when you're behind a screen and nobody knows who you are.
So the author's stuck. Right. Their relationship with Stephanie is messed up, their family's giving them a hard time, and Reddit's judging them, all because of a baby name.
Yeah, it's like a warning. You got to be careful about giving advice, even if you mean well. And it shows you how, something simple like a baby name can cause so much trouble, especially with the internet involved.
So yeah, the author, they're feeling pretty lonely about the whole thing. And then, like you see so often on Reddit, there's an update. It came about a year later, June 2020.
And this is where things get really interesting.
So baby Karen, she's born. Healthy, happy baby. The author writes, Karen was born in April, perfectly healthy and adorable. I've seen her a few times, and I have to admit, seeing her with her name has made me see the name differently.
Makes sense, right? It's not just a name anymore. It's a real person, someone you care about.
Yeah, for sure. But there's more to the update. The author goes on, Stephanie, who has always been a bit of a social media recluse, decided to rejoin Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic to stay connected with people.
That's important. We're talking pandemic, everyone's stuck at home, social media is blowing up.
Right. And at the same time, the Black Lives Matter movement gets bigger and bigger, protests all over the place, everyone's online talking about it. And guess what? The whole Karen meme, it just explodes. Suddenly it's everywhere, tied in with all these discussions about race and privilege.
Wow. So Stephanie, she was basically living under a rock this whole time, no idea about the Karen stuff. And now she's right in the middle of it.
Talk about bad timing, right?
Yeah.
The author doesn't actually say how Stephanie reacted, but you got to imagine it was a shock.
It's like all the stuff the author was worried about, it all came true a year later, just when Stephanie is back on social media.
2 more years go by, October 2022. Another update. Karrie, she's 3 years old now, starting daycare.
And that's when you really see how this name is affecting her out in the real world.
So the author writes about this incident. A couple of 5-year-olds found Karrie's name hilarious and spread the idea that there was something funny or wrong with it. The staff intervened and shut it down immediately, but the damage was done.
Man, that's rough. Imagine being 3 years old getting teased about your name, especially at that age when everything is so new.
And think about it. These 5-year-olds, they probably don't even understand what Karen really means, but they know it's bad. Something to laugh at.
It just shows you how powerful these memes are. They spread online, but then they affect people in the real world, even little kids.
And the teasing didn't stop, even after the staff tried to stop it. Went on for a whole month. The author says Karrie was really upset by it, even though she doesn't really understand why. Stephanie and her husband decided to start having her go by Karrie full-time to avoid further issues.
It makes sense, but it's kind of sad, too. This name, Stephanie picked it out with love, thinking about family, and now it's causing problems for her daughter.
Yeah, it's tough. So the author talks about a conversation they had with Stephanie. Stephanie apologized for getting mad 3 years ago. And the author said, I told her it was water under the bridge, and using Karrie was a great idea. She seems a bit sad, but she also seems relieved to have a solution.
They've come a long way. Stephanie, she finally sees why the author was worried back then. But it's too late, you know. She had to learn the hard way.
And the author, they could have been all, I told you so. But they weren't. They were supportive, trying to help Stephanie.
That shows a lot of maturity, right? Especially since Stephanie was the one who was angry before. But the author, they're just trying to be there for her.
The author even had to deal with people in the comments who thought it was funny. They wrote, some people are saying that this is karma for me, sticking my nose in where it didn't belong. But this isn't funny. This is a little girl being teased for something she has no control over.
It's easy to forget online that there are real people behind those comments. It's not just words on a screen, you know.
So this last update, it really makes you think about everything that's happened. The author, looking back, they admit they could have handled things better, but they still believe they did the right thing by saying something. They wrote, with the distance of time, I am really glad I did broach the topic. If I'd chosen not to bring it up at the time, I think I'd have a lot of regrets now.
It's a tough call, you know. How do you balance being a good friend with, respecting their choices? And what about those situations where you can see trouble coming, but they can't?
Yeah, you can tell it's weighing on them.
Yeah.
Knowing they maybe made things worse, but also like they had to try to help their friend, you know.
It's complicated. The author even talked about some of the criticism from that first post, saying that Stephanie's a really good person, kind, caring, all that. And the post, it was just, one little moment in their lives.
Right. In the last update, they say Karrie's doing okay, going by Karrie now. And Stephanie and her husband, they're going to use Karrie when she starts school. Like, that's going to be her name on all the official stuff.
It's kind of sad, though, isn't it? Stephanie picked that name, probably meant a lot to her. Maybe it was a family name or something. And now it's causing so much stress for her daughter.
It really makes you think about names, how they change over time, you know, especially now with the internet and everything.
Something can start as a joke, like a meme or whatever, but then it affects real people out in the real world.
This whole story, it also makes you think about friendships, giving advice, especially when it's something, sensitive. You can try to do the right thing, but sometimes it just makes things worse. Maybe sometimes it's better to just, keep quiet.
But then what about loyalty to your friend? Isn't it kind of betraying their trust if you don't say something when you see a problem?
Yeah, that's true. That's like, there's no easy answer. It's a real dilemma.
And the internet, it plays a big part in all of this, don't you think? Like, are we more aware of these problems with names because of social media? Or does it just make us more judgmental, more likely to
It
criticize?
makes you wonder, right? How do we balance respecting someone's choices with, trying to protect them, especially when their choices could hurt them later on?
That's a big question. And this whole Karen story, it gives us a lot to think about. How the internet affects us, how complicated friendships can be, and even how we give advice, how we handle these sensitive topics.
Well, that's our deep dive into the Karen saga. It's a reminder that even something as simple as a name, it can have a huge impact, especially now with everyone connected online.
Until next time, folks, keep learning, keep those conversations going, and be careful what you name your kids.